Hey guys, today I have Daniel with me. I'm just gonna let you guys know what's going on. Just a quick intro here. I'm out of town for a month, so Daniel has kindly agreed to do these workshops for me while I'm out of town. Daniel's gonna step in for me and take over these workshops. Looks like Daniel's already got a great example here set up, building some kind of ADX system. So I guess with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Daniel, and he'll take care of you guys today.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Zach. Hello, everyone. There's only 15 in here right now. I'm just curious, how many people are brand new to BloodHound? If you could just give me a little Y in the chat box if you're brand new and this is your first time. So at least 5. Looks like probably half of you. Okay, well, this is probably pretty advanced for you then. Let me take just a few minutes and show you, kind of walk you through adding BloodHound to the chart. First of all, let me just kind of explain what we're going to build today. This is something I actually put together literally about an hour ago, and it's looking pretty good actually. Kind of I wouldn't say a complex system, but there's really about 9 or 10 different rules, but these are the basic rules. We're looking at this indicator. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this. Probably, I would think about half of you are familiar with this. This is an ADXVMA. Now, the two indicators the main two that I'm using today are the SuperTrend U11 and the ADXVMA. These indicators are for free download in the elite section of Big Mike Trading, but the author, Harry, or Fat Tails on Big Mics, has allowed me to use these in demonstrations and to actually put them up on my website so that you guys can download these for free without having to be an elite member on Big Mics. So these are the two main ones that we're going to use today. When you upload the SuperTrend, it comes with this ADXVMA. So when you upload the SuperTrend, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment, you're going to get all of these different moving averages, this ADXVMA, this Butterworth filter, and a number of other different moving averages like this Holt EMA. These are all different moving averages that you can use inside of this SuperTrend indicator, which is what you see right here. If you can see my mouse, that's the SuperTrend. So kind of a trend finding indicator. It's also a trailing stop. Let me just do this. I'm going to show you how you can get it right now, because if you want to follow along with me, I think that would be beneficial for you. I just hope it take you too long to try to go here and download it, but this is where you're going to download it from, and you'll scroll down. I think it's all the way at the bottom. Yeah, it's right there. The SuperTrend U11. This one right here. So when you download this from right here, I think you'll just have to sign up to be able to download it. But go ahead and download it. And then for any of you who don't know how to upload it, let me just take a brief moment and show you how to do that. So after you've downloaded it, you just go to the Control Center in Ninja, click on File, then Utilities, and then Import NinjaScript. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. This is how you load indicators, obviously. And then you just find the SuperTrend right there, and this is the M11, but yours will be a U11, and then you just open it and load it, and you're good to go. All right, so now I want to show you how to get down on the chart, do just a big intro to BloodHound. We're going to start fresh, so let's take BloodHound off. Okay, we just right-click, go to Indicators, scroll down to SI BloodHound, and add that. Okay, and we're going to start with a blank template. So there's no need to try to add anything here. We just add BloodHound, SI BloodHound, click OK, and then we have BloodHound on the chart, and you can see up top here it says empty template. All right, that's where we open the BloodHound user interface from. You just click on empty template, and then here is the empty template. So now let me do this. I'm going to put the chart on the right, and we're just going to start building these conditions one by one. So I think this is going to be a little bit complex for some of you, but for those who have been, waiting for something a little bit more complex, this will be right up your alley. So what I like to do, I like to build everything directly on the logic tab rather than starting in the solvers. So just kind of watch how I'm doing this. So I go immediately to the logic tab, click on new, and we're going to start with this ADXVMA indicator. You can see, and a lot of you have asked me privately, what's a good indicator to help avoid chop? And, there's a lot of different things. You can use the ADX. There's all sorts of different things that try to help you avoid chop, but usually you don't know that you're in chop until you're in it, and you don't know that you're out of it until you've had a breakout. And, oftentimes that initial breakout can be a fake out breakout. So this is one of the indicators that does try to help you avoid chop. And what it does is, if you can see this, let me blow it up. When we get into a period of chop, like right here, it's essentially a pullback. It's just going to show you when the market's pulling back, but oftentimes when the market's pulling back, it can tend to kind of, go sideways for a little bit. So when it does start to pull back, after we've been in a trend, here you can see it's in a downtrend, it's colored magenta. When it starts to pull back, then it goes into this neutral zone and it goes flat. And that's when it paints yellow. See, this is the average chop mode, and it's yellow. And then when the average is falling, it's magenta. When the average is rising, it's cyan, and I'm using a period of 8 right here. Parameter screen still up? John, yeah, that's right. I'm showing you the parameters here. So you can see the average chop mode's yellow, falling is magenta, rising is cyan, and we're using a period of 8. So what I want to do is I want to find when the ADXVMA is trending, when it's trending down or when it's trending up. So what the author of this indicator has done is he's built in the trend conditions into, basically built it into the indicator so that he's set the down sloping line to -1. So when it's sloping down, it's giving an output of -1, and when it's sloping up, it's giving an output of +1. So what we can use is we can use a threshold solver to find the trend. Anytime you have an indicator that's usually mostly custom indicators, that's kind of a trend finding indicator where it has an arrow, a lot of times that arrow or the trend will be set to a value. And I'll kind of show you what I mean here. So we're going to load this ADXVMA, set it to a period of 8. We don't need to show the paint bar, so I like to turn that off. And then here you have the data series set to trend. Okay, so what happens is inside of this data series, the trend has been set to +1 for an uptrend, -1 for a downtrend, and 0 for the yellow output. When it's neutral, it's 0. So we use this data series for the trend in the threshold solver. And always remember, in the threshold solver, the numbers have to be ascending from the bottom up. So we use the lowest number at the bottom and the largest number at the top. Okay, so -1 for the downtrend, +1 for the uptrend, and then 0 for the neutral. So right now we're just going to show the uptrend and then the downtrend, and you can see that BloodHound is instantly showing you the output here. So when it's in a downtrend, we're setting it to -1, and we're giving a value for the short output of 1 when it's in a downtrend. And you can see when it's in an uptrend here, you can see it just barely turned up right there, then it's in an uptrend. Okay, so this is going to be, we'll just name it something simple here, ADXVMA 8 trend. We'll just say up, downtrend. Okay, now what I want to do with this, and this is where BloodHound gets interesting, is with all of these different function nodes. And I remember when I was first learning how to use BloodHound, it was kind of boggling my mind a little bit when I would try to build a condition using only the solver. And then, of course, I would call in and talk to Zach and ask him, well, how do I build this condition? What am I supposed to do here? And Zach told me that, don't always try to get the final condition out of the solver. Sometimes you might have to do, solve for the exact opposite thing that you want to end up with the solver, and then use the function nodes to manipulate the signal into what you want. Okay, and I'll show you more about that when we get into this long-short modifier. But right now we're going to use the toggle. Okay, and this is a very interesting function node. What you can do, I plug in the solver into the toggle node, and what I want to do is I want to force the signal on. So if we're in a downtrend here, I want to stay in a downtrend through the neutral output until we get a new uptrend. So for instance, right here, the downtrend starts on this bar right there. Okay, and it doesn't end until right here. So what I want to do is I want to show all red, all downtrend up until the point where we change the trend in the ADXVMA. So even though it's going neutral, I want to show it as being, I want to show the previous trend continuing until that trend changes. So what we do is we want to force the signal on. And you can see when we get the signal, we want to force it on. And let me just show you what that looks like. Right now it's going to paint the whole entire background of the chart long and short because I haven't changed this yet. Okay, so because when we get a signal, and that's either long or short, if I'm forcing that on and then we get the opposite signal and I'm still forcing that opposite signal on, well, that's just going to paint the whole entire length of the chart long and short. So what we need to do is we need to turn that signal off when we get the opposite signal. So we're going to force it off on the opposite signal, and you can see that's what it's done here. So it's from the moment that it turned into a short condition here, into a downtrend, it pushed that signal forward until we changed direction, until the trend changed here. Okay, so that's how we use the toggle, and of course we're not going to reset it. We'll just click on no action for the reset, and I'm sure I'll get into more about the reset in a moment when I get into the signal blocker. Essentially, with a lot of these function nodes, you can determine when you want to reset the condition that you're after here. It's probably a little bit confusing, but I'll get into that more a little bit later. Now let's build the next condition. So let's narrow this down a little bit. You can see here I have an EMA 45. Okay, so we want to show when the close is above it or when the close is below it. So for that, we need a comparison solver. So I just right-click, add the indicator comparison. Now, for indicator A, I'm going to use the closing price. So indicator A, type, rather than an indicator, we're just going to use the closing price from the drop-down menu. And for indicator B, we need to select an EMA. So I'll just tap the E key, go down to the E's, add the EMA, and then change it to a 45. Click OK, and now we're showing when the close is below the EMA, we get only short signals, and when it's above the EMA 45, we get only long signals. If I'm going too fast for anyone or going too slow, or you want me to repeat anything, just ask, and I'll go over it again. I kind of tend to go over things a little bit quickly because I'm so used to this. I work with it all day, every day. So if you need, okay, good, Bob. I'm sure it's good for you, Bob. You've been in here just about every week for the past couple of years, at least. All right, let's see. Let me go ahead and name that. We're going to say close above and below EMA 45. Okay, so that's that condition. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So we want to show where the bar, first of all, let's do this. We're going to show when the bar is straddling the ADXVMA. Let me get rid of this line here. So when the bar is actually touching, we're going to show when that bar is touching the ADXVMA. How do you determine, Jim is asking, how do you determine values for indicators and charts? How do I determine the values? I just play around with it. You know, that's just kind of subjective, Jim. I mean, you can use any different settings you want. I don't have a set rule for determining, you know. Well, I do for determining the size of the chart. Obviously, I wouldn't want to use a 10-tick chart. So a 233-tick in crude, I don't know, probably about a 10-second chart or something like that. Really, once you get into the open. Let's see, 909. Yeah, it's probably about a 30-second chart equivalent on average days. That's just kind of subjective, Jim. Personally, I use mostly a 1 minute and a 3 minute and a 5 minute for day trading, and then a half-hour chart and a 240-minute chart for swing trading. But I know a lot of people like tick charts. I do use tick charts to some extent. I don't use any of the exotic bar types at all. I will use a range chart from time to time. So let's show this one. We're going to show when the bar is actually near or touching the ADXVMA. So I'm going to use an indicator comparison. Now this may get a little confusing here, but what I want to do is I want to show when the bar is touching. So essentially what I want to show is if the high is above it and the low is below it, or if the high is touching it or the low is touching it, right? So I want to show when a bar is actually straddling it. So let's do this. In order to find the high and the low, in order to be able to analyze the entire length of the bar or any data point on the bar, we need to add this indicator. And this is a very important indicator which gives you access to all the different plots on the price bar. SI Chameleon. All right, if you're doing anything with the bars or specific price action conditions, looking at, you know, the current bar relative to the previous bar, or even any number of bars back, you're always going to be using this indicator, the SI Chameleon. Okay, so I want to look at the high and the low, and there's plenty of videos on the SI Chameleon. You could just go to the YouTube page and type in the search. Let me just show you how to do that briefly. I know a lot of you are really eager to get in here and learn some stuff, but for those of you that are new, since most of you are new, let me just briefly show you this, and then I'll give you the link to it. BloodHound Shark Indicators. Okay, and what we can do is just click on Jeremy Tang, click on his name, and then click on this search right here, and we could just type in SI Chameleon, and then you have all of these different videos that talk about the SI Chameleon. So let me just take that link and post it into the room. So that's the link to the videos here. Now then, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the high for long, the low for short. So if the high is above the ADXVMA, we're going to give a long signal. And simultaneously, if the low is below it, we're going to give a short signal. So let me show you what this looks like. Of course, we need to add the ADXVMA in indicator B. And of course, I'm actually using the plot now, not the data series. So I'm using the actual line that's plotted on the chart. Click OK, connect that. So what you can see here is on the bars that are actually touching the line, we get both a long and a short output. If only the high is above it, such as right here, right here, right here, right here, then we get longs only. But if the high is above it and the low is below it, then we get both the long and the short signal at the same time. So now what we want to do is we want to eliminate all of these bars on which we get only a short signal and all of these bars on which we get only a long signal. We want to keep only the bars on which we get both a long and a short signal. And those are the bars that are touching the ADXVMA. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, under the function nodes, you have this long-short modifier. Okay, so we're going to add that to the logic board. And here, under the long-short modifier, under mode, you have all of these different modes that the long-short modifier can go into. Now think about how we could eliminate the bars on which we have only a short output and the bars on which we have only a long output. Well, we have here a mode that's called product. All right, and what is product? Product is multiplication, right? So if we're multiplying the two outputs together, if we multiply -1 times 0, because we have a 0 output for the long output, the -1 times 0 is 0, right? And likewise, here for the long output, +1 for the long output times 0 for the short output is 0. So they cancel each other out, and then we will be left with only the bars on which we have a long and a short output at the same time. You see how that works? Did everyone understand that? I know that can be a little bit difficult to get the hang of. Hopefully you guys kind of understand how that works. I mean, I use this in just about every single system that I develop. And this is to basically show when the bar is within range or touching some indicator, or basically any moving average or indicator or trend finding indicator. So this is a very important concept here. Now what we can do, let me first name this. So this is essentially, let me just name it high and low to the ADXVMA 8. Okay, so what we can do now is we can show not only if it's touching, but if it's within a tick or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, when it's within a range, basically. So what we're going to do, anytime you're working with a range, you're going to be using this neutral amount. Maybe next time we'll spend a solid 15 or 20 minutes on just the indicator comparison solver, because this really is one of the most used solvers, I would say, in some of the things that I've done and that I've done for other people. So this is a very important solver to get the hang of. I know if you're new to BloodHound, it can take a little time getting used to how all of this works. You have long output, A above B or A below B, or neutral, or large amount and small amount, and it can be a little bit difficult to wrap your mind around. Rather than spending a lot of time on that today, we'll do that another time. Let me just kind of show you how it works briefly here. So when you're looking for a neutral amount, when you're looking for a range, you're always going to be using the neutral amount. And the neutral and the one above it by 0 ticks, by X number of ticks, above it and below it. So these three always correspond to the small amount. Okay, a good way of remembering which ones correspond to which here is the large always corresponds to the more by X number of ticks or more. Okay, so these two are the large, and the small corresponds to these in the middle here. So when you want a range, you want to use the small amount. Now let's do this. Instead of using a certain number of ticks, well, let me just show you this. I'll show you 2 ticks right now. So when I put in 2 ticks there, you can see that it's now showing these 2 bars as touching the ADXVMA. Well, it's obviously not touching, but it's within 2 ticks. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's within 2 ticks. The high is essentially within 2 ticks from the ADXVMA. Now we'll go ahead and just put in 2 ticks up here also. So what we want to do now is, instead of using ticks, we want to use the average true range, so that if we want to put this system on, say, a larger chart or even a different instrument, that we can essentially put it on any instrument or any different chart that we want. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to change this now to ATRs, and rather than using a 100 period average true range, I'm going to use a 40 period, and I'll set this to a third of an average true range. And just so that people understand what this is all about, I'll add the average true range to the chart. If you're not familiar with this, then you need to get familiar with it, because this is one of the most widely used and important indicators, and that's the average true range. We're going to set this to a period of 40, and it's essentially, let me just go ahead and save this. I'll save it as BloodHound Workshop ADXVMA. $7.11. Okay, so this is the ADXVMA, and you can see that it's showing us the average true range at any given bar. All right, so it's doing an average of the range of the bar, the absolute value of the range of the bar of the past, in this case, 40 bars. Okay, so at this point right here, let's just show at this point right here, the average true range is 6 ticks. Okay, so we're doing a third of that, so that's essentially 2 ticks. All right, so that's what we have built in to the comparison solver. It's that average true range. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? I hope so. All right, so let's build the next condition now. First of all, let's do this. Let's add these together with an AND node. And show all of them combined, and then we'll start piecing everything together here. So I want to show when all of these are happening at the same time. I don't want to show when either or is happening and allow all of the signals to come through at the same time, but they all have to be happening in unison. That's the AND logic. You see? And we're going to refine this down and down and down until we get our entry signals. Okay, so now let's build the next condition. The ADX must be neutral. All right, we want to take trades from the market going sideways. So essentially what we're looking for is a pullback, right? And we want the ADX, we want the bar to be touching the ADXVMA, but we also want it to be in the neutral zone. And you can see for the most part it is, but the constraint that we're going to put on it is that it must have been neutral for at least 3 bars, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's essentially, the first thing we need to do is just show when the ADXVMA is neutral. And we're going to do that by using essentially the same setup here. So let me just copy that one. I'm going to go back to the Solvers tab, click on that solver, and then copy it. Okay, so I've just copied that one, and you can see the copy right here. Go back to the logic board, right-click, existing solvers, and then go down and click on this to add it to the logic board. Okay, now I'm going to say, rather than uptrend and downtrend, I'm going to call this the neutral. Okay, so now I need to go in here No, it's right. We're still using the trend, so I just need to change the output here. I'm going to set this back to 0. And then rather than giving an output when we're in an uptrend or a downtrend, I want to give the output when it's equal to 0, because 0 is the neutral, right? Let me change this now. There we go. So do you see how I did that? It's always in ascending order with a threshold solver, so lowest to highest. In this case, the highest number is 1, so we just put 1 at the top, right? We're looking for an output of 0. So when this indicator gives an output of 0, which corresponds to the neutral trend here when it's going sideways, when it's yellow, we want to set that to give us both long output when it's equal to 0 and short output when it's equal to 0. So that when we get the neutral trend out of the ADXVMA, we're getting both long and short output out of BloodHound. It should make sense. Essentially, I want to be able to take either a long or a short when the ADXVMA is neutral. And of course, that trend determination, whether we're going to be taking shorts from here or longs from here, is determined by these other conditions and also the SuperTrend condition here, which is number 6. And we'll get to that in a moment. All right, so now I'm going to connect this, and you can see it eliminated a few more bars. Now what I want to do is I want to show that we must have been in a neutral trend in the ADXVMA for at least 3 bars. So I need to use the lookback node for that. So once again, we're using the function node, this time a lookback node. So I click on that to add it, connect from the solver to the input of the lookback node, and now we want to set this to a lookback of 3. So I'll get rid of the displacement. We don't need a displacement. We just set that to 0. And the lookback period is going to be 3 bars. And rather than an average, we don't want to do an average. We want to use the min value. So essentially what this is telling us is if on this bar, change the color of that, looking back 3 bars, if any one of those bars doesn't have an output, well, let me explain it like this. So it's the output, the least output of the minimum output of those past 3 bars is the output that we're going to get. So if we didn't have any output within the past 3 bars, then we won't have any output for the current bar. If that makes sense. So you can see here, we have an output on every bar on which we have the neutral, the yellow plot, the neutral trend of the ADXVMA. Every time on every bar that it's yellow, we get the output. Okay, so when I connect it using a minimum lookback of 3, let me just show you this. So right here, we have no output. Before, we did have output. Okay, so looking back from this bar, including the bar 1, 2, 3, that third bar right there had no output. Okay, because it's within 3 bars, right, and we're using the minimum output of those 3 bars, well, the minimum output is 0 here. So it's also going to be 0 for this bar because we're using the minimum of the past 3. Does that make sense? So when we connect it, it's essentially saying that there has to be 3 in a row, 3 yellow bars in a row. It's the kind of the generic way of saying it. Okay. So now I'll disconnect this one and then connect the look back to the AND node. and we're refining it further and further. Okay, now we want to show when the bar is touching or within range of the EMA 45. Okay, so let's build that one now. It's essentially going to look very similar to this right here. So rather than building this from scratch, let me copy this one, and then we'll change out the ADXVMA to an EMA 45. And I'll do that by going to the Solvers tab, clicking on this solver. Remember the chameleon, the high and the low, to the ADXVMA 8, and I'm going to copy that. Go back to the Logic tab, right-click, existing solvers, and then add the copy now. Pretty straightforward. Please, if anyone has any questions, just don't hesitate to ask. I'll stop and try to make things as clear as possible if anyone's having a hard time. I know this can be a little bit tricky if you're brand new, especially. But it's like anything. You got to spend time with it. It's probably good that you get a little confused in the beginning, in that it just shows that you're human, because this stuff can be. It's like learning any new piece of technology. It's completely brand new to you when you first start, so you got to start somewhere. And I think going over something a little bit more complex like this, while it may be a little confusing, it kind of shows you right from the get-go some of the things that are possible. So I think kind of doing a broad overview like this, if you're brand new to it right now, doing this kind of a broad overview is going to be very beneficial to you. And then you can go back and learn all these individual pieces by watching the recording or watching some of the other videos on these exact logic nodes and solvers. Okay, but today it's just kind of a broad overview showing you something a little bit more complex. And of course, in my opinion, I think that's really about the best way to learn. One of the things that I personally did was, rather than watching the videos, I would take the logic templates and just go in and just try to figure out what was being done and write out the rules that I thought the solvers were using, and just kind of pick everything apart, kind of reverse engineer the templates. And that's what shaved off so much time off of my learning curve, was just kind of getting in there and really trying to figure it out on my own. But the confusion without, exactly, Dan, that's right. So I mean, imagine trying to program something like this. It'd be impossible for us, for most of us. So thank goodness for BloodHound. Really just an incredible tool, and I use it all day, every day, and it still just amazes me. So now we're looking at the EMA 45. So when the bar is touching or within range of the EMA 45. So now when I connect this, just like before when we were looking at the condition that was touching the ADXVMA, you see that? We're getting both the long and the short output on the same bars. I'm sorry, on the bar. We're getting both the long and the short output on the bars that are near or straddling the EMA 45. So just like before with this one, we want to use the long-short modifier. We want to set that just like we did this one to product, because we want to eliminate the bars on which we have only long or only short. Set that to product. And I think by the time we get done with this is actually going to be something something you might want to use, because it does look pretty good. I mean, I literally just threw this together this morning because I wanted to show something a little bit more advanced and something pretty interesting, and it looks really good. I mean, I haven't back tested it yet, but we can get into that. So you see now the bars that are touching or are within range now have long and short output from BloodHound. So remember, let's do this. We kind of squeeze it together a little bit. So remember, this is what it looked like before. right? Now when we connect this one, we're limiting it down, we're restricting it more and more, right? So rather than using such a tight range, let's use a little more lenient range. Let's set this out to like 75. So rather than 1/3, we're going to use 3/4 of the ATR, of the average true range. There we go. So now we're getting output from these bars that are, you know, not super close, but are within 3/4 of the average true range to the EMA 45. You see that? So we're allowing these bars now. Does that make sense? Andreas is saying, when I try different things, what do I have to be careful not to ruin anything on the BloodHound? Not to ruin anything. You won't ruin BloodHound. You could possibly go in and damage some of the conditions that you've built. What I do, Andreas, is anytime, if I'm using a template from, say, the website that I've downloaded to kind of mess around and learn new things, I'll immediately go in and save a copy of it. So this is the BloodHound Workshop template. We'll just say BloodHound Workshop July 11, 2014 copy. And then I'll take that copy and destroy that one. And then you always have a backup. Okay? So if you want, you know, when I give this template out or when I put it up and let you guys download it, if you want to go in and add to it or change it or, you know, do anything, make any adjustments to it, I would do that. I would take it and immediately save a copy of it. Okay? Now I've got this one here. Let me just do this. Let me open that one back up, and then we'll continue it. Nope, that didn't work. I didn't save it yet. Okay, so I'll resave this over this one. Yes, I do. Okay, there we go. And then, of course, since I've loaded a new template, I need to click on the chart, tap the F5 key, and then reload it. Now then, let's build this next condition, and that's going to be the SuperTrend condition. So we must be below this indicator, the SuperTrend indicator for shorts, and we must be above it for longs. Obviously, this long right here will go away when I add this condition to it. So let's show that now. Let's build that condition. And the SuperTrend has the same type data series trend condition as the ADXVMA. Obviously, they were written by the same person, so he's built in that condition so that it's easily accessible within a strategy. So I'm going to use the threshold, and this is what you'll use. Well, you use it for any different oscillators, but also when, let's say, for instance, if you have a chart drawing object, like an arrow or something, if that arrow has been set in a data series to a value, then you'll access that value most often through this indicator threshold. So let me show you what I mean. Once again, after I add the SuperTrend indicator, you see this is a bool series. All right, so it's not exactly a data series, it's a bool series, which tells you true or false. All right, most often, well, usually always, true is uptrend, false is downtrend. So false is 0, so we're going to use 0 for the downtrend. We're going to use 1 for the uptrend. All right, but first I need to change this. We're going to use a 13, 3.5, 34. That's the one that I have on the chart. And we don't need to show the arrows, don't need to show the paint bars. Okay? And then we just click OK. And since it's a bool series, it's true and false. All we really need is 1 and 0. So once again, I just set A to 1. Long output is going to be 1. Short output is going to be 0. And I use this 0. You use the 0 that's closest to the first number. So if you got 1 here, you'll see if I use the 0 here, I don't get anything. And I scratched my head at this for about an hour one day, trying to figure out, what's going on here. But anyway, you want to use closest 1. Okay, just remember that. So when you have 1 up here, you're using a bool series or even a data series that's set to 1, 0, or -1. When you want to use the 0, you always use the 0 that's closest to the top under the 1. All right? So this is going to be the SuperTrend. And I'll just write that in there. 13, 3.5, 34. Okay, now when I connect this, we should get rid of this long signal here. See? So that's how we filter it on down. Filter it down. So now the actual trigger is going to be a reversal bar. So you can see we're not getting a reversal bar on this bar. This is actually an up-closing bar. And I'll show you. Let's say we wanted to allow 1 bar to the right. We wanted to extend this whole entire thing to the right by 1 bar. We wanted to push this signal forward so that we get a short signal also on the next bar. What we could do is this. We could actually use this look back. No displacement. Set this to 2, and rather than min, we'll use the max, which is just like extending the signal forward a bar, 1 bar. See that? So rather than min, see if I use min, then it totally eliminates that bar because there's only 1 signal on that bar. Here there were 2 signals in a row. Remember, look here. See that? See that? 2 signals in a row? So when I use the min function, it's essentially looking for the bar on which you had 2 signals in a row. Does that make sense? Kind of a generic way of explaining it. But we don't want that. We're going to use max. Really, I'm not going to use this at all, but I just wanted to kind of show you that. I'll leave it connected for a moment. But we're going to refine this further now. So we want to show a reversal bar. And you can see this is the reversal bar, right? The 2 bars were going up, 2 up closes, and then the next bar is a down closing bar. So it's reversing from going up to going down. It's actually an inflection. It has an inflected. It's inflected from going up and it inflected down right there. Okay, so we use the indicator inflection solver. Now, it's obviously default to SMA 14. Rather than using the indicator, we're going to go directly above it to the type and just choose the closing price. So you see how that works? So it's showing us every single bar that changes direction, that inflects from down to up or up to down. You guys got that? And this is something you use usually on most systems, I would say. Most systems that are actually waiting for a reversal bar. Okay, so that's a closing price inflection. So if I were to connect that now and run it through the look back, oh, okay. Right. What I did here, remember, without the look back, without extending that signal forward 1 bar, this is what we're using. So if I were to connect this closing price inflection to this AND node, obviously we don't have a signal on the next bar. So if I connect it now, we're not going to get that short signal right there, because we would have had to have had a short signal from all the other solvers on that bar. Remember, as you're connecting all of these together, you're limiting it down, right? Every one that you connect with an AND node, each one of these solvers must have the same output on that bar for the output to show up. So in order to get a short signal, when all of these are connected through the AND node, each one of these has to be giving a short output on that bar. All right, and because this one is not giving you a short output until the next bar, when I connect this, then we get nothing there, because this one is the odd man out. It's not giving us a short output on that green bar right there. Okay, so now, let's see. We're getting pretty close now, huh? I mean, this is looking a lot better. Let's have a look at it. Looks like we got a little hung up right here. Personally, I don't, that's right after the end of an ABC. I'm not exactly looking to go short right there. I'm sorry, go long right there. I'd be looking to go short right there, discretionarily. But at any rate, let's have a look at some of these signals. So just today, using this simple little system, looks like the open was right here. Pre-market, you would have had at least this short, and then right after the open, you would have had this short, and you would have already been short from here, most likely, so you would have just bypassed that one, and then taken it down to, wherever. Maybe you would have gotten out here, or wherever. Then you would have missed this chop, and then gotten short again here, and there. And then had one more short here, which you probably would have gotten stopped out on, or a break even. And then you would have had a loser there. You really would have only gotten in that one long, and then you would have bypassed these three, and you probably would have gotten stopped out right there. Right? And then you would have gotten stopped out of this one if you were still trading. After I had 2 or 3 winners in a row, I'd be done for the day. So now let's do this. Let's have a look. I guess we've been going at this for about an hour, but I wanted to build one more, quite a bit more difficult condition. You see, how do I explain this? You see at this point right here, for one thing, let me just kind of show you this. You see where the market's topping right here? Doesn't it look like somebody has about 1,000 sell orders sitting right there at 103 even? You see how that looks? You come up and hit it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10, 11, 12. Cannot get through it, and then it starts drifting off, right? Yeah, Jim, I'll do that after a minute here. So let's just have a look at what's going on there. I imagine there's gigantic volume with essentially somebody is just absorbing all of the buying going into 103. They're coming up, they're trying to get above 103, but there's probably 2,000 or 3,000 orders sitting right there, like an iceberg order. Let's just look at this better volume indicator there. And this is on a tick chart, so obviously you don't have a lot of differentiation between the size of the volume bar, since this is obviously tick charts, a tick chart. But look at right here. When we came up and we hit that 103 for the first time on that tiny little doji bar, see that right there? we had massive, massive volume. All right, and then we drifted down. We came back up, hit the same spot, even more volume. Can't get through it, it just goes sideways. Somebody's limit order selling right there at 103. Comes down again, and then finally it hits the same spot. Still pretty high volume, but it's much less. That's the typical volume divergence pattern that I look to sell. So that almost always marks a major pivot. Now, what I want to focus on, let's get rid of the volume, is this. A lot of times as you're making a reversal and you're using a moving average, especially with tick charts or minute charts, you see how here we kind of barely go through it here, almost about 4 ticks right here. Doesn't quite go through the super trend, and it goes up, pulls back to it, goes up, pulls back to it, like right on top of it, goes up, pulls back to it, doesn't get through it, pulls back to it. That's kind of the last leg. You can see the steepness of the trend here. Very steep, almost 45 degrees, right? Well, of course, it depends on the scaling of the chart, but now look at this leg. It's waning. It's not as steep. It's waning. And then finally, from here to here, it's waning even more. All right, that tells you the trend is most likely coming to an end, and the next major signifier that the trend is coming to an end is this. We have a low that goes well below the moving average there. So let's say it goes through by 5 or 6 ticks, all right, and then it pulls back up. We don't want to take this long, and we don't want to take that long, because we've just had this push through the moving average. Does that make sense to everyone? This is getting a little bit advanced here. But because it's pushed through by so much, we don't want to take this long, and we don't want to take that long. We want to stop looking for trades, because the trend is dying. The trend is dead at that point, right? We've just had a major run up, and the trend is dying. It's a major push here, another major push that's waning, and then the last final little baby push that's just going sideways. Then we get the high volume right at 103, and it starts to go down. This is why. Well, okay, let's do this now. So let's build that condition. So how would we go about doing that? That's a pretty tough one. So let's say, well, we want to show, let's just have a look at what that is, how many ticks, and then we'll convert it to the ATRs. We'll just say that's 7 ticks, right? So at that point, the ATR is at 4 ticks. So we want to say, essentially, if the low of the bar moves beyond the EMA 45 by 1 ATR or more, then we want to change the direction. And I'll show you what I mean here now. So let's just kind of build the reverse condition. Let me show you what I mean. So we'll take the comparison solver. We're going to use the high and the low of the bar. So we'll say the low for short, the high for long, and then the EMA 45. Now watch. So just like we did before, where we wanted to show when the bars were straddling the EMA 45, that's what we have here now. All right. But here we're going to use one ATR to show when the low is below the EMA 45 by at least 1 ATR what or more. You see that? And we'll take 15 or 20 minutes next time to explain in detail how all of this works. So when the low is below the EMA 45 by a full ATR or more, then we can get the short condition. All right, not until the low is broken below by a full ATR or more. But you can see if I were to connect this to the AND node, it's going to eliminate all of my trades that are directly from the EMA 45. All right, Van has a question. How to enter longer short when the SMA 8 crosses over the SMA 23 and only when volume is greater than 5,000? Sure, I'll show you that at the end there, Van. Let me just finish this example. All right, so you see that when I connect it like it is right now, we're eliminating a lot of the trades that are actually right on top of the EMA 45. So let me disconnect that now. So what we want to do is we want to show both a long and a short output, or actually we want to show all long output until we get a low that is below the EMA 45 by a full ATR or more. So what I need to do is I need to invert this condition. But you see when I invert it, all I have to do is right click, click on not, invert to get the exact opposite. So obviously when we have no output, like you see here, we have no output on these bars that show no output, no BloodHound output, see? So when I invert that, we're going to get both outputs. We're going to get both long and short. If we have only long, then we invert that and it becomes short. So right click, not, see that? So now what I want to do is this. I want to change these. I'm going to totally reverse this. This is probably just going to confuse you big time, but bear with me. Now I need to change these. So we want low for long, but it's really inverted, so it's still high for long, but it's inverted now, right? If that makes sense. So here's the main thing for this. All right, I want to show when we have 5 bars or more. I'm sorry, I want to show a look back of 5 bars. So the minimum output within the past 5 bars, I want to carry that forward because remember our long signal is right here and right here. All right, we're not taking a long here because the previous bar, the low of that bar was below the EMA 45 by a full ATR or more. We're not taking a long here because one of the previous 5 bars was the low of it was below the 45 EMA by a full ATR or more, right? This is I'm sorry if this is confusing, but this is a good condition, excellent condition here. That's going to help us eliminate some bad trades right at the transition of a trend. So I set the look back period to 5 and then use a minimum because I want the minimum output of the past 5 bars. You see that? So it's totally eliminated the output on this bar. Right, so I'm looking for essentially this condition right here is showing when, because I've inverted it, right? So I'm showing when the low of the bar is below the EMA 45 by a full ATR or more. Okay, and then when the high is above the bar by a full ATR or more. So the bars on which the high and the low is within an ATR, we're getting both long and short output because I've inverted it here. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing is I'm showing what I wanted to do, Zach, was eliminate these 2 long trades because the low of the bar has already gone greater than 1 full ATR below the EMA 45. You can see as we're coming up here, the low never breaks through the EMA 45 by more than an ATR. It's usually only a couple of ticks. So at this point, it breaks through by a full ATR. Okay, so I want to eliminate a long trade for the next 5 bars at least, because within the past 5 bars, the low has gone below the EMA 45 by a full ATR. Okay, so what I've done is I've used the look back node, minimum, look back to 5 bars. I'm using the minimum, and it's eliminating the possibility of having a long on that trade and the possibility of having a long on this trade, right? Because the previous bar we had both a long and a short output, and that's what kind of confuses me is when we have both a long and a short, what's it calling the minimum?
Can I look at the original solver?
It's just kind of difficult for me to put that into words. So I've inverted it. I'm using the low for the long and the high for the short.
Yeah, it's right there. We're missing some long signals.
Right,
and
exactly.
That's what you want to extend. You want to make sure that those extend out 5 additional bars more.
Right. So if any bar within the past 5 bars had a short, then I want to eliminate the possibility of taking a long. Essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So using the look back.
Yeah. Set to min.
Set to min.
And really, what it's doing is when it's both long and short.
Correct.
Yeah. When it's set to both long and when we're getting both long and a short output, then it's just giving us no output.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what confuses me.
So setting it to minimum is looking for any non-signaling bar. So whenever there's no long output, yeah. So when that solver says, hey. So when that solver removes the long output, then the lookback node is saying that there's no output, and then it is extending that for 5 bars.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's looking for 0. That the lookback function node is looking for an output of 0, or whatever the minimum output is, and it'll extend that for 5 bars.
Okay. And when the output is -1, it's not counting that as less than or as the minimum.
No. Well, okay.
That's what kind of confuses me.
Technically, internally, BloodHound doesn't calculate the shorts as a negative value.
So
the shorts are calculated as the positive one internally.
Gotcha.
It's only when it goes, when BloodHound plots it to the chart, BloodHound converts it at the last minute to a -1.
I gotcha.
But internally, all the mathematical calculations that BloodHound's doing internally, it's all 0 to +1. So even the short sides are the short outputs are calculated from 0 to +1, and it's just converted at the last minute to plot it on the chart.
Gotcha. So when we get both a long and a short output at the same time, it's basically counting that as a 0. Is that kind of what's happening here? Because then when I use the minimum, I get no output.
Yeah, could you put a marker on your chart where both of those outputs happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, put a little marker on that.
So that's where we get both long and short, both long and short, both long and short, and that's the last one. Yeah. Maybe I should do this. So all of these are marking both long and short at the same time.
Okay.
And then I connect it. There we go.
And we get that one bar. Yeah, so we get that one. The second to last red arrow is a long bar.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. All right. Can you connect the solver back up?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so here's where the confusion gets. You have to look at the long side separately and the short side separately. They're 2 separate logic streams.
Right.
So you have to look at them separately. They don't affect each other. So I can see that there are 5 long signals in a row. So your fourth red arrow.
Oh, right here?
Yeah, you get 5 in a row.
Right.
So that's why you get 1 bar that has a long signal, because you actually had 5 in a row.
Oh,
so
I see. Right. So it's doing them independently.
Yes, totally independent. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The long calculations are always independent of the short calculations.
Right.
So there's
makes
only
perfect sense then.
there's only one function node that actually can use both of them, can use the long and the short to affect each other, and that's the long-short modifier function node.
Right,
So
which multiplies them together and divides them together and all that.
Right, that's the only node where the long and the short can affect each other.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Gotcha.
so it just looks like your look back of 5 wasn't quite enough in this case.
Right.
So,
That makes sense then. Okay. Well, sorry for the confusion, guys, but this is a kind of a difficult
yeah, that's why
condition
we have
here.
these.
Exactly.
That's why we have these workshops to work this stuff out. So.
That's it. All right. Thanks, Zach.
All right. Good
Appreciate
deal.
it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Okay, so this is showing us when low, I'll write that, and we'll just say the low is less than the EMA 45 by 1 ATR or more. This is kind of a long one. Or the high is greater than the EMA 45. Obviously, it's by 1 ATR or more. Okay. I kind of debated, well, I kind of, I thought about not doing this condition because it is kind of a difficult one, but it really does clean up a lot of the bad signals that happen right at the end of a trend. So you can see how that eliminated those two signals. Remember before, without that condition, we were taking 2 longs back to back right as the trend was rolling over. Right as we're trying to get through 103, which it could not do. So in order to eliminate those, because the low broke so far below the EMA 45 at this point, and at this point, we wanted to eliminate the longs for the next 5 bars, let's say 7 bars. And that's plenty. That should be plenty. We could go as high as 10 or 15, but so we're only going to be able to take longs from the EMA 45 and the ADXVMA 8 if within the past 7 bars the low has not gone too far below the EMA 45. Kind of a simple way of saying that. I hope I didn't totally confuse everyone, but that should be easy enough to understand. So if within the past 7 bars, if the low has not broken below the EMA 45 by 1 full ATR or more, by 1 average length of the bar of the past 40 bars or more, then we still are allowed to take longs, right? So that's why we can take a long from here, from here, from here, and from here, but not from here because the low broke too far below it, okay? So I think I've beaten that to death now. Now let's do this. Here, where we're having multiple long signals in a row, let's eliminate some of those by using this signal blocker. And you can see, let me just kind of explain this briefly. The signal blocker, it's going to block the signal on the subsequent 5 bars. It's really the subsequent 4. It's the 5th one, including the current bar. So we're going to block the signal of the next 5 bars. It's essentially going to block until the end of the 5th bar, at which point it resets. It's also going to reset when we get no signal from the input, which is essentially why it's not doing anything right now, because there is a bar in between each of these signals that we don't have output on. So when I disconnect this one, I turn this false, then you can see it's doing what we want it to do. All right, so we have here on the signal blocker, we have the input, and then we have the reset. We don't have anything going into the reset, so we're not trying to reset it using some other condition, so we just turn that off. We turn that to false. We only want to reset it after 5 bars or if we get the opposite signal, which of course we probably 99.9% of the time never would within 5 bars. So now we have it a little bit cleaner. So rather than having 10 signals back to back, we only have 1, 2, 3. Closing price inflection. I'm going to set this to a look back of 2 to allow for a reversal on the second bar. So you can see when I set this to 1 by itself, the closing price inflection, I'm only getting the exact reversal bar. I'm not getting any signal on the next subsequent bars. Okay, so only when it turns from moving up to moving down. All right, if I want to extend that and I want to be able to get a short signal on the actual second bar, so this is the first and then the second, then I can set this look back to 2, and there we go. So now I have the output on the second bar as well. So now when I connect it, we have a few more signals here that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So let's take a look at that now. Okay, we just got a new short signal here, which is looking pretty good so far. We got a long here that we didn't have before. I thought we had a long here before. I mean a short here before. I think we did have a short there. Yeah. Let me set that to a 5 again. I wonder if I shouldn't make this a little bit less, we'll say, or I mean more, like 1.33. No. Nah, I don't think so. Let's just keep it at 1.5. Trying to make it strict, but not too strict. Let's just leave it right there. Yeah, so it has to be, the only reason we're not having any shorts in here, as I've explained, probably overkill by now, is because the high of the bar has moved so far away from the EMA 45, this line here. All right, so it's moved too far away at that point, so that's why we don't get a short here or here. Same thing here, it's moved a little bit too far, and that's why we don't get a short there. And also here. But at this point, it's just barely, it's almost moved too far. Another tick or two would have been too far. But it's right on the verge, so then we get a beautiful short right there. So that kind of keeps you out of chop, and it keeps you out of the areas where the trend is starting to turn, right? So now you can see we've had a lot of pretty good looking trades today, as crude is just going straight down. Very nice. So now then, let's do this. Let me move into one of these other questions, because we've been at this for about an hour and a half now. So I'm going to leave that right there. Get rid of this. So that'll be the end of our system for today. And now let me answer some of these questions. Actually, before I do that, let's just have a look at it, because I'm kind of curious. This does look pretty good. It's a great signal. This was obviously a loser. This was a loser. These were two losers. Well, really one loser. Probably broke even on that one. We had a great short here. a great short here and here and right here. Probably a break even or a loser here, break even or loser. Nice winner. A bunch of nice winners in a row. Maybe got stopped out on that one. Actually, that one shouldn't be there. I wonder what would happen if I did this. Let's do this. I'm going to add one more condition. I'm going to say that the close of the bar has to close above the ADXVMA. It might get rid of way too many, but let's just have a look and see what that does. Say the close above or below the ADXVMA 8. Close above ADXVMA. Starting to get hungry. All right. Yeah, kind of clean it up a little bit right there, big time. Don't like that one at all. I don't like that one. It's looking pretty good though. We missed this one just barely. Let's see if we can't make an allowance for that when it closes right on top of it. Remember, anytime you want a neutral amount or a range, you use the neutral. So let's set that to 0.1 ticks. What is that? It must be just barely a full tick. This is the 8, right? Yeah. Huh. Set it to a full tick. All right, we'll just keep it at a full tick to make a kind of a little bit of a fudge factor there, so it doesn't quite have to close all the way through it, but as long as it's closing within a tick of the ADXVMA. And let's just kind of see how that looks now. Not bad. It's kind of a weird one there. Okay. So that's pretty cool. That's something I'm sure you guys will get a lot of use out of and be able to mess around with and see if you can't put together some better conditions to make it even better. So I'll get this up as soon as I can and send all of you a link to download it. Now, let me answer some of these questions. Thanks, Bob. Let's start back here. Any chance you'll put this on BloodHound website as a template for the members? Absolutely, yeah. For sure, and I'll probably put it on my website too. How would you put a directional movement indicator in BloodHound? I need to know the correct solver and their setup, Jim. Let me start with Jim Norman. You wanted to see this on a 1 minute or a 3 minute. Let's just go directly to a 3 minute. See how it looks. And of course, this is something you can do on your own, but wow, look at that. But would have been nice to short right there and still be in it. So that's the 3 minute. Pretty good looking signals, huh? Let's just have a look at that for a minute. Let me get rid of all of these drawing objects. Go ahead and get rid of this ATR as well. It's like a massive short in crude. Back here, right here, shorted 4. And got out, it was about an $8,000 trade. 8,100, I got out right there. So almost $2 full. So this thing looks pretty decent. I wouldn't trade it blindly, fully automated, but it's something something worth taking a further look at. Let's just set it to a 1 minute real quick. Even more trades, and all in the good right direction, except for right here. Definitely got stopped out of that one. Good looking longs there. Okay. All right, let's move on. All right, let's see. Then, how to enter long or short when the SMA 8 crosses, yeah. Okay, when the SMA 8 crosses the SMA 23. Is that right? 23. And only when volume is greater than 5,000. So you must be talking about the ES. Probably. All right. So this is the 5 minute. We'll look at volume. And let me see. Yeah, okay. Yes. Okay, so we want to show SI BloodHound when I'm just going to answer these questions in order. We have quite a few coming in. So we want to show a crossover. Right, indicator crossover solver. Very simple. Just change this to an 8 for indicator A. And then indicator B, change the value to a 23. It comes default at an SMA. So you can see when the SMA crosses the 23, above it we get a long. When the SMA 8 crosses below it, just barely right there, you got a short, and then when it crosses above it, you get a long. Now if you want to show when it's above 5,000, which it looks like it almost always is. No, not always. Yeah, right, obviously. Okay. So when, that was stupid of me to say, the SMA 8 crosses the SMA 23. Now we want to show, using the comparison solver, when volume, and we use indicator A. Now watch closely. Indicator A in the comparison solver, we're going to select volume from this drop-down menu under type, and then under indicator A, we're going to use an absolute value of 5,000. So we want to get both long and short when volume is above 5,000. So right now we're getting long when it's above, short when it's below. We want to eliminate the shorts below, set the output to 0, and then change this output to 1 for the short when it's above 5,000. So we get both long and short when it's above 5,000. All right, so this is volume above 5,000. And then we just connect those two together with the AND node. And if you want to allow a little bit of a fudge factor in the look back, you could just say, 2 bars for the look back or whatever. Or, whatever you want. So Van, does that answer it? Is that it? Okay, you got it. Now let's see. How would you put a directional movement indicator, DM indicator in BloodHound? I need to know the correct solvers and their setup. Well, it depends on what you want to do with it, Jim, but let's just say if you want to do just the average stuff with it. Anything specific, Jim? I'm just going to show a crossover, unless you tell me something specific, Jim. For your DM, I'll show when the blue crosses below the red or when the red crosses above the blue. So let's say for the DM, we'll use a crossover solver. We'll select DM for indicator A, and let's just show when, let's just show positive DM here for indicator A. And then the negative output, the red line, for indicator B. Okay? So when the blue crosses above the red, we get a long. When the blue crosses below the red, we get a short. All right, that's the typical crossover. Now, when the red and blue cross, yep, so that's just the crossover, that's it. So the DM plus DM minus cross. You see how I did that, Jim? I just got the DM positive for indicator A using a crossover solver. Remember, solver, indicator, crossover. That's what I'm using here. I've already named it. And then indicator B, the DM negative. All right, so that's the crossover. Now, if you wanted to show only those crossovers that are above 15 or 20 or 25, I think 25 is too high, but depends on what you're looking at, I guess. So if we want, well, since it's crossing the negative one, let's use the negative one. So if you want the DM negative above or below, we'll just say above, I don't know, let's say 15. We got the DM negative in indicator A. Let's use absolute value of 15 in indicator B, and just like we did with the volume, we're going to give both a long and a short output when it's above 15, when the negative DM is above 15. So you can see right here it slipped below 15, right? So we wouldn't allow, let's find a cross that we wouldn't allow. Not very many of them. Let's restrict that a little bit more then. Let's set it to 20. All Okay, so we wouldn't allow this cross. We wouldn't allow that cross, or this cross, or that cross, or this cross. No, we wouldn't allow very many crosses at all. Let's say 18. Right now, when we connect both of these together, we're only going to allow the crosses where the DM negative is above 18. Okay? And if you wanted to, a common thing that people use with this, and this is a perfect example of it, is when the ADX is below both of them and you get a cross. So let's say we'll just copy this one. No, we won't. We'll copy, yeah, we will. Copy that twice. Actually, I shouldn't have done that. Let's just do this. I'm going to show when the ADX, the green line, is below both lines. It's below the DM negative. It's below the DM negative. Okay, it's ADX below it. DM negative. We're going to copy that. Right click, add it to the chart. Now this is going to be the DM positive. See that? So when I connect both of these together, we're showing when the ADX is below both the DM negative and the DM positive. Okay, I totally screwed the pooch on that one. We need to show below, not above. So we want both long and short output when the ADX is below both of these. So we need to change the output. A less than B. ADX less than DMI negative or DMI positive. In this case, it's DMI positive. So I need to mark that. Here we go. So now I'll change this also. Remember, we want A less than B. A less than B for both long and short. Now then, see that? Does that make sense? So when the ADX, when the green is below both of them, we get an output. Now, if we get a cross while this is true, that's the signal. So if we wanted to add a trend condition in here, like let's say, well, let's just do this. Let's just do the, let's just do the SMA 8 above the SMA 23. And that would eliminate those shorts there. See that? And that's a short there. So that's one of the main signals that people look for, is when the ADX is below the DMI positive and negative. That's what Wells talked about a lot. He said this was one of his best indicators, one of his most useful indicators. Of course, he probably used it a little bit differently than he wrote about. Who knows? But this is one of the signals that he talks about. So pretty interesting. Yep, you got it, Jim. I think that pretty much covers that. Now, which computer processor do I have? And I have an i7 3.4. 16 megs of RAM, but that doesn't really matter with NinjaTrader. I think Ninja can only use one or two anyway. It's nothing incredible. I mean, let's just see. Goodness gracious, come on. Yeah, that's what I got. I7. I tried overclocking it and burn it up just about. So, of course, my fan was pretty clogged up. Now, what else do we have here? Somebody else asked a question. If you have time, I ask a second question. How to enter at 30-minute time frame and exit at 5-minute time frame. Not sure what you mean by that. Are you saying you have some conditions from a higher time frame that you want to enter with and then you want to exit? Let's save that for next time, because that'll take quite a while to go into using the higher time frame and all that, and that would just confuse people. We're almost at 2 hours now. Any chance you'll put this on a BloodHound? Yes. Do you find that, Robert's asking, do you find that the effort used in creating this complex system produces better results over more simple? This is actually pretty simple. It just seems complex. But these are very simple rules. I think much simpler than this, you probably don't. It's not necessarily true. Larry Williams talks about this a lot. He says if you can write the rules out on the back of a napkin, then you're probably okay. If you get anything more complex, so complex that you couldn't write out all the rules on the back of a napkin, then it's probably curve fitted and you're wasting your time. So this is something that we could write out on, definitely on the back of a napkin here. I don't know what happened to it. I guess when I changed the chart, I lost everything. But see, these are the rules right here, more or less. I mean, this is a generic way of writing it out. It's not pseudocode. It's just kind of, these are what we're looking for. So this is still considered a rather simple system. Now, Eldon is asking, being new to BloodHound, I have two questions. Where can we get the recording of this workshop? What recommendations do you have to best learn how to use BloodHound? Give me a moment here. Let me bring this up. This is the YouTube channel. This is where all of the videos are. Okay? Let me put that link in here. Name of the channel is Jeremy Tang. All right, so if you're looking for, just BloodHound, you have to type in BloodHound Shark Indicators, and then you'll find this channel. The channel is Jeremy Tang. You can search for any of the solvers. I would recommend going through each of the videos that cover each of the solvers and each of the logic nodes and function nodes. I would go through all of those first and then go into individual workshops. Let me paste this into the entire audience. So that's the YouTube page right there. I haven't actually gone on here in a while looking at this, but let's go to Learn BloodHound, getting started. All right, you've probably already gone through the quick start video, but then go into each one of these. Watch the solvers. Watch all of these. The most important solver, in my opinion, is the indicator comparison. All right. Well, I can't say that's the most. It is about the most important, but really home in on the indicator comparison, the threshold. It really just depends on what you're working with. They're all incredibly useful, but the three that I find that I use the most are the crossover, the comparison, and the threshold. I would say second. Well, in just about every system, you use the inflection solver for the closing price inflection. And then, of course, bar direction and bar length. You can do a lot with this bar length solver, especially when it comes to looking at the ranges of bars, when you're working with minute charts and tick charts. Obviously, if you're using Renko bars, this isn't going to help you. Support and resistance solver. It seems complicated, but it's really not that complicated once you understand how it works. I would spend a little time with that. I would go through all of these, but spend all of your time on the indicator comparison until you know it backwards and forwards. Once you truly understand how this indicator comparison solver works, something's going to click in your mind, and it's just everything becomes so much easier in working with BloodHound. And then go through the logic nodes here and the function nodes. The most important function nodes for me have been the long-short modifier, the look-back node. They're all incredibly important. So I use all of them equally. I would say that the long-short modifier is the one that I use the most. Next would be the look-back, and then the blocker and the counter. All right, obviously learn about the chameleon, because that's what you have to access to work with the data points on the bar. If you want to look at the close relative to the previous high and low, or you can build candlestick patterns with this. Maybe we'll spend some time on that next week. And then make sure you fully understand Raven. And then obviously you can go through the documentation, which I'll show you in a moment. But then here you have the tips and tricks videos. I'd watch these. And then these video tutorials, probably go through these first and then move into the solvers and the function nodes and the logic nodes. And then BloodHound in-depth. And then of course you have all of the different webinars here. So you can go through all of these webinars. You may have to fast forward through some of the first part, as a lot of the first part of the videos are going over how to access these videos and how to load BloodHound and all that, and then you get into the meat of it, so you may have to kind of skip around a little bit in some of these workshops. Okay, and then of course you can search for specific things in all of these on the YouTube page here. So if there's a specific thing you're trying to do, you can search the YouTube page here. And you asked another question, what kind of stops and targets would you use? Jim, that just depends on the system. Something like this. That's why I built, the template that I built, that I have up for sale on my website. It has a lot of the different exit conditions built into it. So of course I would have a divergence exit built into it. So if we got divergence at any point while we're going down, using whichever oscillator you want to use, then it would get us out. Obviously, if we were short from right here, looks to me like we have divergence there. I would almost guarantee it. Of course, if we're using the RSI, there most definitely is divergence there. Let's just set it to 14. You see this? RSI's higher lows, price has lower lows. So it would get us out either right there or right there using that divergence exit. And then of course you could have a fail-safe exit, which would be either using the SuperTrend, which a lot of people use, but I would probably use for the exit, I would use a much faster, say 5, 2.5, let's just say 26. So you could hold it until we got to close above that, which happens on that bar. There's any number of different stops we could use. And then of course you could test different size tick targets and stops. Let's say a 25 tick target with a 15 tick trailing stop or something like that. You could just, you'd have to test it all out. If it keeps us, Robert's asking or saying, if it keeps us at a chop, then obviously it's worth the effort. That's right. Thanks, Rob. How about on Renko bars? We could try that. $150. Oh. So that's a 4-1. I'm not getting... I don't know what's wrong with my Ninja Trader, but there we go. That's weird. Didn't have data for the SI Pro Renko, but it did for the backtest Renko. So these are the signals on the Renko charts. Quite a lot of signals. This would be on a 4-1. Personally, I'm not, well, whatever. Ken is asking, how would you show an MA crossing another MA from above and when crossing another MA from below? So let's just say we have a 55, 10, and I don't know, 100. Okay, so let's say we want to show when, let's just, so I don't have to keep changing things, let's just change this back to an 8. A 23 and the 55. So when the 8 crosses above, oh, I guess I deleted it. Okay, let's just start over here. So using a crossover, when the 8 SMA crosses above the 23, we get a long and a short. Let's say we only want longs out of this one. So this is, we'll label this as long 8, 23 SMA cross. So we want longs only out of this one. You see how I did that? I changed the evaluate to long only. Here it would be short only. Here it would be both. So we set that to long only. Now I'm going to go in and copy that. And I'm going to say, rather than the 23, when it crosses the 55, I want shorts only. So here, it's the 8 crossing the 55 for longs only, but I want shorts only out of that one. I'm sorry, did I say that right? Yeah, so shorts only out of that one. So we'll change this to shorts. So we get a long when the 8 crosses the 55. I'm sorry, we get a long when the 8 crosses the 23, but we only get shorts when the 8 crosses the 55. And that's how we would do that, using the OR node and setting the evaluate to long only for one crossover and short only for the other crossover. Okay. Using the CCI crossing below 100 or higher, crossing below 100 or higher, or 100, is that the same principle? Yeah, Andreas, yeah, it would be. Pretty much I mean, you could show when the CCI is totally above or completely below 100 or negative 100 using the comparison. But if you want to show the bar on which it crosses, then yeah, you would use the crossover. Are there audio alerts to go with signals? Yes, you could. Set the audio alerts here. Right here, play audio sound alert. Sorry, play alert sound. Turn it to true, and then select the alert you want. See that? Now, Bob is asking, are there audio... Okay, I'm sorry, that was you, Bob. Now, Ken is saying, even on BloodHound strategies, can they be shown in Market Analyzer and exported into Excel on continuous basis? I'm sure you can export into Excel, but I wouldn't know how to do that, Ken. But yeah, you can. And yeah, you can show these BloodHound templates in Market Analyzer. There's a lot of videos on YouTube that show you how to do that. I actually did one in the last workshop that we did. We spent the entire time on the Market Analyzer showing you how to do that. So just go to the YouTube page and you can find that there. Just type in Market Analyzer in the search. Define the period. I'm not sure what you mean, Ken. Define time period. You want to show a time? You can use the time session solver here under solver nodes down at the bottom, time session. So let's say we wanted to show only those signals from 8 o'clock to noon. All right, we'll go in here and make a custom session template. We go into the session, click on the ellipsis, and then new, we'll say 8 to 12. Click OK, and then we add right here. Monday, 8 a.m. to Monday, 12 p.m. Click OK. Select it. Right-click on it. Add Monday through Friday, 8 to noon, 8 to noon, 8 to noon, 8 to noon, 8 to noon. Make sure you have the proper time selected down here. Eastern time we'll use. Click OK. And there you have only signals between 8 and noon. Omar, your ninja said something like your trial period for SI Renko bars has ended. Yeah, right. I'm starting on a fresh computer, Omar. I burn out my hard drive, and I just have to get the licensing all back in order. Okay, if nobody has any other questions, I'm going to end it right there. It's at 2 hours and 10 minutes right now. So thanks, everyone, for showing up. I hope you got a lot out of it. Might have been a little, advanced and confusing, but this is good for you. So you'll have this to refer back to, and yeah, hopefully this will help you out. And as you refer back to it and you learn all the different conditions that we built here, I think just fully understanding these conditions alone will really kickstart your get a jump start on your learning curve in BloodHound. Fully understanding just this template will give you a pretty broad understanding of BloodHound. Okay, yeah, I'll see you again next Friday and the Friday after that. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll leave it there. Everybody have a good day, good luck trading, and have a great weekend, everyone.